Hello and welcome to Brand X Reviews, and for this one we have a BXR mailbag submission. Now on the channel we talk a lot about 80s and 90s action stars and action movies. The last video I was talking about Cynthia Rothrock, somebody that we've mentioned on the channel before but never gone into massive depth on. So we've got a mailbag submission, and for this one I was going to get my co-review of the core, but unfortunately he's working. I do have a quick report from him. As you can see, he's not amused.
Oh, they're making me work, motherfuckers!
So the core cannot be with us, unfortunately, but this is the mailbag request itself from Paul Cage. I hear a lot about the recent trends in films of female badasses and the films not doing very well in general because of this. I watched your most recent video of a very legit female badass, and it seems her films didn't do very well either, given they are mostly cheap DVD releases. Do you think there is a resistance to females becoming believable as real-life action stars, Linda Hamilton and Sigourney Weaver aside? So there's quite a lot to kind of talk about there, really. Obviously, you're spanning a number of decades there, because by mentioning Sigourney Weaver and Linda Hamilton, you're referring to the James Cameron movies, Terminator and Aliens mainly. I know they've done stuff since, but that was kind of the main time of that. So, but obviously talking about current context, as in modern movies. Now there's, like I said, quite a lot to talk about really, because we've had different action stars in more recent decades. So let's say 10, 15 years, you started to see a lot of sports personalities in female domains of that anyway. So your MMA fighters and UFCs, all that kind of stuff. So you had people like Gina Carano, who I'm a big fan of on the channel, and also Ronda Rousey. I'm not so much a fan of hers, but you know, she's made some good attempts at stuff, and she's done quite well. She was in big franchise. They were both those actresses were in the Fast and Furious franchise, which is a massive deal. And I think what happened particularly for the image there, Ronda Rousey was really pioneering that, and for a while she seemed very much on top of that, like I say, that entire field. But I mean, you got to a point where Joe Rogan was coming out with comments saying, and obviously he knows his stuff, he was legitimately saying he thinks that Ronda Rousey could take on a lot of men and, you know, would actually be an actual fair fight. So that was something that was, you talk about legitimacy, that was a legitimate perception at the very least, that it was a legitimate thing that she was as tough as that. You started to see that kind of downfall though after she started to lose around about 10 years ago. Was it late 2015 I seem to remember, and I think again late 2016. This is Ronda Rousey. Gina Carano was doing a lot of movies, again like you say, straight to video, straight to streaming. There's some good ones though, to be fair. I think there's one called In the Blood, and there was one called Scorched Earth, I seem to remember. And this is Gina Carano. Obviously she was in The Mandalorian, didn't end too well thanks to Wokery. That was one battle that was really a challenge for her. We supported her on this channel. But she did Terror on the Prairie with The Daily Wire, which was a pretty good western by modern standards. So yeah, in terms of that, those were the females that I would really say are the sort of more recent ones that are really well known. I mean, there's probably some that I'm not aware of that are maybe a bit more legitimate. What you start to see instead, and this is unfortunate, is what we would say is an illegitimate action star, female action star, which just gets on ridiculous, where you've got these really scrawny females who are, you know, they're good looking and everything, whether it's like Jennifer Lawrence or Scarlett Johansson. And this was more your sort of big blockbuster films, not necessarily just superhero films. Obviously I had films like the Hunger Games movies, which I quite enjoyed, to be fair. I'm not slagging them off, but you didn't really buy it when you see them up against the guys. I mean, if there's something in the story that being a woman elevates them in that particular scenario, great, that can work very well. I mean, to be fair, that's one of the things that worked about Hunger Games. She was very brave. She was doing what she did because I think from memory she was the older sister, and she volunteers as tribute for this girl. It's very brave, male or female. Bravery can apply to both. But when it comes to physical strength, you don't quite buy it, especially when it's a female against a man. And there's been a lot of these movies, and they just don't work when you see this kind of thing. Sometimes it's done with a bit of satire to it. So take, for example, you had Anna de Armas in Die Another Day, and it's ridiculous because she's really small, but she's like taking down guys, big guys, in hand-to-hand combat. But it's done absolutely with a kind of satirical thing to it, so that's absolutely fine. I thought that was really cool in that movie, the way it kind of played out, because you didn't expect this very kind of like giggly bubbly sort of inexperienced like secret agent to then do what she did. So that was kind of done for laughs. But when it's in a bit more of a sort of serious context, you kind of do need somebody like a Ronda Rousey or a Gina Carano who you kind of buy. Even if some of it's kind of like a bit of a mythos they've got to them and their career and so on as an action star, you kind of need somebody like that's bringing something to the table. That's why on this channel we've kind of defined action stars and action heroes as in like ones that actually the greater body of their acting career was represented by this physicality, this action star persona, not just somebody like Mel Gibson, who's great, absolutely love Mel Gibson, but he dabbled in a lot of things. He didn't just do action movies, he did some great action movies, but he did a lot of really great comedies, a lot of really great like war films and so on that weren't action roles, so that didn't define him, whereas somebody like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, Seagal, obviously the kind of the Mount Rushmore of action heroes, but those guys did, and they kept at it for decades, and they pretty much stayed, well, maybe not Seagal quite so much, but they stayed in really good shape for all those years. Whereas modern female action stars don't really have that at all, and never had that, unless we're going to talk about your Ronda Rousey and your Gina Carano's. But unfortunately their careers were quite short-lived, and the acting quality wasn't the best as well. You can say that about Cynthia Rothrock as well. Like, her acting maybe wasn't quite up there, but she still had something about her, and she had longevity in a career that was pretty much reliant on straight to video, as in videotape at the time, and word of mouth and so on. So, like I said, there's a lot to kind of talk about there. I don't really know what else kind of you want me to cover talking about that, but I guess what I would apply to modern female action stars also applies to male ones as well. I mean, you've got guys like Scott Adkins, absolutely brilliant, but most people don't know who he is if I mention him. I'd have to say, well, these are the films it was in, and they'll say, oh, him. At best, they'll say that. A lot of like normies, obviously those of us that are massively into action movies know. But yeah, anyway, I'll pretty much leave it at that. I hope that was gave you a bit of an answer to that anyway. So that's Brand X Reviews Mailbag for Paul Cage. Thank you very much.
We've just seen the core is not open to the public. Please use the core located to the right.
Never has a more true statement ever been made.